What would make five roommates disappear from a locked dorm room? What would make them leave behind their most precious possessions, their half-finished homework, their weekend plans still written on the whiteboard? Sarah, Jessica, Lisa, Amanda, and Rebecca vanished from Millbrook University in 1991, leaving behind only questions and a room full of ghosts. But in 2024, those ghosts started talking, and what they revealed about that November night will terrify you. Located in the small town of Willowbrook, Ohio, Millbrook University was a prestigious liberal arts college founded in 1887. The campus was famous for its historic buildings, and rumors circulated among students that it was haunted. But what happened in the fall of 1991 would leave those rumors far behind. The university housed approximately 3,000 students and was renowned for its academic excellence. Whitman Hall was one of the oldest dormitory buildings on campus, constructed in 1923. Sarah Martinez was 18 years old, a first-year psychology major. She came from a small Texas town and was the first in her family to attend college. Her father, Manuel Martinez, was a local bank manager, and her mother, Carmen, was an elementary school teacher. Sarah was a very hardworking student who aspired to become a child psychologist. Her classmates knew her as both intelligent and compassionate. Jessica Chen was 18 years old, studying computer engineering and far ahead of her classmates in technology. Her family had immigrated from Taiwan to America in the 1980s. Her father, David Chen, was a software engineer at a technology company, and her mother, Linda, was an accountant. Jessica had a natural talent for programming and dreamed of working at Apple. She was always the one solving her friends' computer problems. Lisa Thompson was 18 years old, a quiet girl with a passion for literature who was always seen with a book in hand. She came from Vermont, where her father, Charles Thompson, was an editor at a publishing house, and her mother, Margaret, was also a book editor. Lisa dreamed of becoming a writer and was particularly fond of Virginia Woolf's works. Her roommates often sought her help with writing assignments. Amanda Rodriguez was 18 years old, an art major who had decorated their room with colorful paintings. She came from New Mexico. Her father, Roberto Rodriguez, was a museum director, and her mother, Sophia, was a high school art teacher. Amanda was a very talented painter, particularly skilled at portrait work. She had painted portraits of all her roommates, which adorned the walls of their room. Rebecca Williams was 18 years old, a music major who loved playing piano. She came from Vermont. Her father, Michael Williams, was a music teacher, and her mother, Sarah, was a piano instructor. Rebecca had been playing piano since she was very young and had deep knowledge of classical music. She often gave mini concerts for her roommates in the evenings. These five girls were living in room 237 on the second floor of Whitman Hall in November 1991. The room was a bit crowded, but the girls got along very well with each other. The room contained 5 separate beds, 2 desks, a large wardrobe, and a small sitting area. The walls were covered with Amanda's paintings, Lisa's favorite book quotes, and photographs. The room's atmosphere was warm and intimate. Sarah usually took on the leadership role, organizing the group's activities. She coordinated weekly class schedules and planned joint activities. Jessica solved technological problems and handled everyone's computer needs. Lisa helped everyone with their homework, particularly providing guidance in writing. Amanda beautified the room and suggested creative projects. Rebecca organized music sessions and kept the group's morale high. On the evening of November 14th, 1991, Thursday, the girls were having a normal night. They had eaten dinner together and then returned to their room. Sarah was talking to her mother on the phone, discussing tomorrow's psychology exam. "Mom, I'm so excited." "I'm trying to guess what questions Professor Davis will ask," she said on the phone. Jessica was trying to finish her computer programming assignment, writing C++ code. complex algorithm formulas were visible on her screen. Lisa was reading Virginia Woolf's Mrs. Dalloway and taking notes occasionally. "How can this woman write so beautifully?" she murmured to herself. Amanda was drawing a still life, painting the fruit bowl on the table. She was carefully cleaning her brushes, trying to capture every detail perfectly. Rebecca was listening to Chopin on her Walkman and moving her fingers in the air as if playing piano. Around 11:30 p.m., the dorm supervisor, Mrs. Henderson, who was patrolling the corridor, heard normal sounds coming from room 237 as she passed by. The girls were talking. Music was playing. Normal student life was continuing. Mrs. Henderson had been a dorm supervisor for 25 years and knew the students' routines very well. The girls in room 237 were always very organized and responsible students. After midnight, the room had quieted down, which was normal because the girls usually went to bed early. They had classes tomorrow and were all very disciplined students. Mrs. Henderson had made her final check and seen no problems. The corridor was calm and peaceful, with normal sounds coming from other rooms as well. On Friday morning, November 15th, at 8 a.m., Sarah's absence from psychology class was noticed. Professor Davis found this strange because Sarah never missed class. Sarah's empty seat in the classroom was conspicuous. Professor Davis tried to focus on the lesson, but wondered why Sarah hadn't come. At 10 a.m., it was also noticed that Jessica hadn't come to math class. Professor Kumar was surprised by Jessica's absence. Jessica was one of the most active students and always asked questions. By noon, it was understood that Jessica hadn't come to the computer lab either. Lab assistant Tom kept waiting for Jessica because there was an important project due that day. At the same time, it was noticed that Lisa hadn't come to literature class, Amanda wasn't seen at the art studio, and Rebecca hadn't attended music practice. The faculty found this strange because all 5 girls were very regular students and never missed multiple classes. In the evening, dorm supervisor Mrs. Henderson decided to check room 237. The fact that all 5 girls hadn't been seen all day was worrying. As she walked down the corridor, she asked other students, but no one had seen the girls. This was very strange because normally at least one of them would be seen in the dining hall or library. When she knocked on the room door, she received no answer. She tried several more times but heard no sound from inside. When she opened the door with the master key, the scene she saw shocked her. The room seemed to have been suddenly abandoned, but there was no disorder. Everything was in its place, but all 5 girls were gone. Open books sat on Sarah's desk. Psychology class notes, pens arranged neatly. The phone receiver seemed to have just been hung up. Jessica's computer was still on, but the screensaver was running. Half-finished lines of code were visible on the screen. Programming books lay open next to the computer. Lisa's book was open to page 127 with pen marks on it. Her notebook was open on the desk with a half-finished sentence written, "Wolf's stream of consciousness technique, really." Amanda's art supplies were scattered on the table, her palette still covered with colorful paints. The half-finished, still life painting was set up on the easel. Rebecca's Walkman lay on the bed, headphones still attached to it. Music was still playing, but very quietly. Piano sheet music was scattered on the table, as if abandoned while practicing a piece. The top sheet had Chopin Etude Op, 10 number 3 inches written on it. The strangest detail was that all 5 girls' personal belongings were in the room. Their wallets, ID cards, keys, even their winter coats were hanging in the closet. Sarah's bag contained a cell phone, which was very rare in 1991. Jessica's calculator sat on the desk. Lisa's favorite necklace was on the dresser. Amanda's expensive paintbrushes were neatly arranged in their box. Rebecca's piano key cleaning cloth sat on the desk. There were no signs of haste, panic, or struggle. It was as if the girls had simply vanished into thin air. Mrs. Henderson immediately called university security. Her hand trembled as she held the phone. In her 25-year career, she had never encountered anything like this. Security Chief Robert Blake came immediately and examined the room. Blake was an experienced former police officer with 15 years of experience, but he had never encountered such a situation. Blake's first observation was the room's perfect order. If this were a kidnapping, there would definitely be signs of struggle, he told Mrs. Henderson, but nothing here seems disturbed. It's as if the girls left voluntarily, but they didn't take any of their things. The bed covers were neat, but appeared to have been slept in. A full glass of water still sat next to Sarah's bed. There was a half-eaten sandwich on Jessica's desk, tomato and cheese, with only 2 bites taken. Lisa's diary lay open, with the last entry dated November 14th and written at 11:15 p.m. I'm so excited about tomorrow's literature exam. I wonder what questions Mrs. Parker will ask about Wolf. I discussed this topic with my roommates. They're all very supportive. Took over the case. Stone was an experienced detective with 20 years of experience who had seen many strange cases in her career, but the simultaneous disappearance of 5 students deeply shook her. This isn't a normal kidnapping case, she told Blake. This is something much more organized. Stone immediately launched a comprehensive investigation. First, the room was examined in detail. The forensic team began taking fingerprints, but found only prints belonging to the 5 girls. DNA samples were taken, but again, only biological material belonging to the room's residents was detected. There were no foreign traces. Intensive search efforts began at the university. Every inch of the campus, every building, every room was searched. The library, gymnasium, cafeteria, laboratories, everywhere was searched thoroughly. Nearby forests, the lakeside, and the town center were also investigated. Volunteers were organized, and search dogs were brought in. When local media heard the news, the story spilled over to national press. Headlines reading, "5 university students mysteriously disappear," appeared in newspapers. Television channels broadcast special news bulletins. The girls' families came to Willowbrook and held press conferences. The FBI became involved in the case, and expert search and rescue teams were brought in. Special Agent Robert Martinez coordinated the investigation. Martinez was an experienced agent who had dealt with similar cases, but this case was very unusual even for him. 5 people's traces have completely vanished, he said. This requires a very organized operation. When security cameras were examined, a strange anomaly was discovered. At 11:47 p.m. in the corridor of Whitman Hall, the cameras were working normally. Students were moving in the corridor. Everything was normal. The girls were even seen entering their rooms. At 11:48 p.m., the cameras went dark, and at 11:49 p.m. they came back on. Only a 2-minute interruption, but during this time, the corridor had completely emptied. Even stranger, when electrical engineers examined the security system, they couldn't find any technical malfunction. The cameras were working perfectly, as were the recording devices. There had been no power outage either. The 2-minute blackout seemed to have been deliberately created. FBI technical experts investigated how the system could have been manipulated. The result was shocking. Disabling the security system required high-level technical knowledge. The number of people who could do this work was very small, and all of them needed to have professional training. When Detective Stone interviewed other students, disturbing details began to emerge. Students in neighboring room 235 said they heard heavy footsteps in the corridor around midnight. It was like many people were walking, but very quietly, they said. Normally students run and talk, but this was different. Students in room 239 reported that they smelled a strange odor after midnight, a sweet chemical smell. It was like a hospital smell but sweeter, said student Mary. It lasted very briefly, but we definitely noticed it. This smell was something never experienced in the normal dorm environment. Students in room 137 on the first floor, directly below room 237, also reported strange things. They had heard strange sounds in their ceiling around midnight, like heavy things being dragged. It sounded like furniture being moved, but very quietly, said student Jennifer. Then it suddenly stopped. The FBI's technical team took room 237 for forensic examination. There were no signs of struggle in the room. Fingerprints belonged only to the 5 girls and routine cleaning staff. DNA samples also came only from the room's residents. No foreign biological traces were detected. But this situation actually seemed even more suspicious. The most surprising finding was in the room's ventilation system. When technicians checked the ventilation ducts, they discovered that room 237's ventilation system was different from other rooms. This room's ventilation system was connected directly to the building's main air unit, while other rooms were connected to systems grouped by floors. When the reason for this anomaly was investigated, it was learned that when the building was constructed in 1923, this room had been designed as a special purpose room. In the original plans, this room was shown as an administrative office, which is why it had a separate ventilation system. But over the years, this had been forgotten, and the room had begun to be used as a regular dorm room. FBI chemists took air samples and analyzed them. The results were shocking. Trace amounts of sedative substance residues were found in the air. These substances were chemical compounds known as sleep gas that were illegal even in 1991. How this substance had entered the room was a great mystery. This finding completely changed the nature of the case. This was no longer a disappearance case, but a deliberate kidnapping operation. But who would want to kidnap 5 university students, and why? FBI profiling experts began trying to answer these questions. Detective Stone thoroughly investigated the backgrounds of the 5 girls. Sarah Martinez's family was a middle-class, respectable family. Her father, Manuel, was a local bank manager. Her mother, Carmen, was an elementary school teacher. The family had no debts, enemies, or criminal history. Sarah was a perfect student and had never had any disciplinary problems. Jessica Chen's family had immigrated from Taiwan, and her father, David, was an engineer at a technology company. Since coming to America, the family had been very hardworking and had elevated their social status. Jessica was a very smart girl and was truly talented with computers. She had no negative history. Lisa Thompson's father, Charles, was a book editor, and her mother, Margaret, also worked at a publishing house. The family lived a quiet life in Vermont. Lisa was a well-read, introverted, but very intelligent girl. She had no social problems. Amanda Rodriguez's father, Roberto, was a museum director, and her mother, Sophia, was an art teacher. The family lived in a cultural environment in New Mexico. Amanda was a very talented artist and had even held exhibitions. She had a very positive background. Rebecca Williams's father, Michael, was a music teacher, and her mother, Sarah, was a piano instructor. The family lived in a music-filled environment. Rebecca had been playing piano since she was very young and was talented. She had no problems. None of the families had criminal histories, enemies, or financial problems. The girls themselves were also perfect students. None had disciplinary issues. They were all from different departments, but all were very successful. Why might they have been targeted? FBI profiling experts determined that the case was a very organized operation. Disabling the security system, delivering chemical substances to the room, kidnapping 5 people simultaneously, these required professional knowledge and equipment. This was not amateur work. 6 months passed. The media dubbed the case the Millbrook Five mystery. National press covered the topic. Television programs featured the case. Unsolved Mysteries dedicated a special episode. Families held press conferences, offered rewards, and participated in national search efforts. Sarah's family offered a $50,000 reward. Jessica's family created a wide network through technology companies. Lisa's family mobilized the writers and editors community. Amanda's family received support from the art world. Rebecca's family mobilized the music community, but no clues were found. A year later, the FBI moved the case to cold files. Detective Stone kept the file on her desk until she retired, but there were no developments. Millbrook University never assigned room 237 to any student. The room remained locked and no one could enter. The university administration declared that the room was sacred and should be respected. Years passed. The girls' families never lost hope. Every year on November 14th, the anniversary of the disappearance, they held press conferences. Sarah's mother, Carmen Martinez, would say, "Our girls are still out there somewhere. We will never stop looking for them. Someday we will learn the truth." Jessica's father, David Chen, continued search efforts using technology. As the internet became widespread, he created websites and launched social media campaigns. Lisa's family wrote books. Amanda's family had documentary films made. Rebecca's family held memorial concerts every year. In 2010, Millbrook University's administration changed. The new rector, Dr. Patricia Adams, decided to modernize the old buildings on campus. Whitman Hall was part of this renovation project. The building needed infrastructure renewal because it was very old. Dr. Adams thought carefully when making the renovation decision. The issue of room 237 was a sensitive topic. She met with the families so as not to hurt their feelings. She promised that the room would not be touched. Only the building's infrastructure would be renewed. In March 2024, during renovation work, cleaning crew leader Frank Morrison made a discovery. Morrison had been working at the university for 25 years and remembered the Millbrook Five case very well. He was a young cleaning worker at the time and had followed the case closely. While cleaning old items in the basement of Whitman Hall, he discovered a compartment not shown in the building's original plans. Morrison was a very experienced worker and knew every corner of the building. But this compartment had never caught his attention. This hidden compartment was in the corner of the basement and looked like a normal wall unless examined carefully. Morrison noticed by chance that the wall was hollow. When cleaning with his brush, it made a different sound. When he checked with his hands, he realized there was space behind the wall. When Morrison applied some pressure, a secret door opened. The door was so skillfully hidden that no one had noticed it for years. What he found inside horrified him. There was a small room of about 10 square meters, arranged exactly like a laboratory. There were rusted metal shelves on the walls, old medical equipment, and many glass bottles. Old chemical smells could be felt in the room's air. But the most shocking thing was 5 student ID cards lying on the metal table in the center of the room. Morrison picked up the ID cards with trembling hands. Sarah Martinez, Jessica Chen, Lisa Thompson, Amanda Rodriguez, Rebecca Williams, all of the Millbrook Five were there. The ID cards were in almost perfect condition, as if they had been placed there yesterday. Each card had handwritten notes on the back. Morrison's heart was beating wildly. He examined the room in more detail with his flashlight. There were file cabinets on the walls, old medical equipment, and chemical analysis devices. In one corner stood an old television and VCR device. Many files and documents lay on the tables. Morrison immediately called the university administration. When Dr. Adams learned of the situation, she immediately called the police. "Frank, don't touch anything. Get out of there immediately and close the door," she said on the phone. This could be a very important discovery. Willowbrook Police Department's new chief, Detective Ryan Cooper, took over the case. Cooper knew the Millbrook case from the files, but wasn't expecting such a major development. He immediately notified the FBI and called crime scene teams. Special Agent Linda Harrison from the FBI took over the case. Harrison was a cold case specialist who had been working on unsolved cases for 20 years. She had studied the Millbrook case in detail and immediately understood the importance of this discovery. This could explain the fate of not just the 5 girls, she told her team. While examining the secret room, Harrison found documents, notes, and records from 1991. Among the files were folders titled Project Tabula Rasa. These documents revealed a shocking truth. The Millbrook Five were victims of an illegal mind control experiment. According to the documents, in the late 1980s and early 1990s, a secret operation called Project Tabula Rasa was being conducted at universities. The purpose of this project was to reprogram young, intelligent individuals with strong social bonds. Using various chemical substances and psychological techniques, subjects' memories would be erased and new identities created. The project files contained horrific details. Subjects have been selected according to ideal profile criteria: ages 18 to 22, high IQ, strong family bonds, leadership potential, diverse ethnic backgrounds, various academic disciplines. Read one document. The Millbrook Five exactly fit these criteria. Millbrook University was one of the test centers for this project. Room 237 had been deliberately chosen because both its ventilation system could be manipulated and it had direct connection to the basement. Even the building's 1923 plans had been used for this operation. The documents contained shocking details. The 5 girls had been unknowingly monitored for months. Secret cameras had been placed in their rooms. Low doses of chemical substances had been mixed into their food and drinking water. Each one's psychological profile had been created, their weaknesses and strengths documented. Subject S, Sarah. Strong leadership qualities, high empathy capacity, respectful toward authority figures. Memory resistance at medium level. Subject J, Jessica. Superior technological intelligence, strong logical thinking structure, low emotional attachments, suitable for programming. Subject L, Lisa. Creative intelligence, deep thinking capacity, introverted personality, low risk factor. Amanda and Rebecca's profiles were filled with similar details. Each girl had been found suitable for different programming modules. Project managers planned to use them for different purposes. The most horrific document was the project's final report. November 14th, 1991. Operation successfully completed. 5 subjects neutralized with sedative gas. Security system manipulated as planned. Subjects transferred to Nevada test facility. Memory suppression process to be initiated. Other documents found by Agent Harrison showed that Project Tabula Rasa was part of a much larger operation. Similar experiments were being conducted at universities across the country. Harvard, Yale, MIT, Stanford. Most prestigious schools were involved in this project. The project's goal was to create perfect citizens, individuals with erased memories, reprogrammed, unconditionally loyal to the state. During the Cold War era, such experiments were conducted in great secrecy. The CIA and other intelligence organizations financed these projects. Among the documents was the address of a facility in Nevada. Clearwater Research Facility, Henderson, Nevada. Level 7 clearance required. The FBI immediately decided to raid this facility. They discovered a secret laboratory inside an old military base in Henderson, Nevada. The facility had been abandoned in 2010, but inside were hundreds of files, medical records, and photographs. Among these documents were also the Millbrook Five's files. The girls had indeed been brought to this facility and subjected to experimental procedures for 3 years. The Nevada files revealed a horrific truth. Sarah Martinez was marked with the note, "Strong resistance to memory suppression. Old identity cannot be completely erased. Elimination protocol recommended." Jessica Chen's file read, "Valuable for technological knowledge, but emotional resistance problem. transferred to different program. Lisa Thompson's file contained notes, memory modification successfully completed while preserving creative intelligence, ready for writer identity. For Amanda Rodriguez, it read, artistic ability preserved, family memories erased, artist identity integration successful. Rebecca Williams's file said, musical memory preserved, personal history completely rewritten, music teacher identity active. Through intensive investigation, the FBI discovered the shocking truth. Sarah Martinez and Jessica Chen had died at the facility. Sarah's file read, 1994, elimination procedure completed. Jessica's file contained notes, 1994, medical complications during transfer, lost. Lisa Thompson, Amanda Rodriguez, and Rebecca Williams had been returned to society with new identities in 1994. The FBI found their new identity documents in the archives as well. Lisa Thompson had become Laura White, Amanda Rodriguez became Angela Davis, and Rebecca Williams took the identity Rachel Johnson. Efforts to trace the three girls began. According to FBI data, Laura White was living in Wisconsin. For 30 years, she had lived a completely different identity, not remembering her real past. Angela Davis was working as an art teacher in California. Rachel Johnson was living as a piano teacher in New York. When the FBI contacted these three women, they all experienced great shock. Laura White was a 53-year-old married woman with 2 children living a happy life. Angela Davis lived alone and held exhibitions in galleries. Rachel Johnson ran a music school and had many students. When they learned their real identities, they all showed the same reaction. First denial, then shock, then suppressed memories slowly surfacing. Especially Rachel/Rebecca burst into tears when she remembered her roommates. I always had strange dreams, Laura/Lisa told FBI agents. I remembered living with 4 girls in the same room, reading books. But Laura White had never had roommates. Where were these memories coming from? Angela/Amanda said, when painting, I sometimes drew faces I didn't recognize, the same 4 girls every time. I didn't know who they were, but felt compelled to draw them. Rachel/Rebecca said, sometimes I played melodies I didn't know. My fingers remembered, but I didn't. Behind Project Tabula Rasa were Cold War-era mind control programs. The FBI's investigation revealed that similar projects had been conducted at dozens of universities across the country. Harvard's Academic Excellence Project, Yale's Cognitive Enhancement Program, Stanford's Mental Optimization Research. All were different code names for the same program. Hundreds of young people had been victims of these experiments. Most had died or disappeared. Some continued to live with completely new identities. The FBI launched a nationwide search called Operation Memory Recovery. The reunion of Lisa, Amanda, and Rebecca was extremely emotional. They met again after 33 years, but were now completely different people. They had lived as Laura White, Angela Davis, and Rachel Johnson for 30 years. They had difficulty remembering their past, but the bond between them was still strong. I remember Sarah's voice, said Rebecca/Rachel with tears. She always took care of us. Jessica always laughed. The fact that I'll never see them again is very painful. Lisa/Laura and Amanda/Angela felt similar emotions. Sarah and Jessica's families were told the most painful truth. Their daughters had been victims of Project Tabula Rasa and had died at the Nevada facility in 1994. Carmen Martinez learned her daughter had died after waiting 33 years. David Chen also learned Jessica's fate. As the FBI's investigation continued, the extent of Project Tabula Rasa continued to emerge. Not just at Millbrook, but hundreds of students across the country had been victims of this project. Most were still alive, but with completely different identities. Millbrook University administration was greatly shocked by the situation. Dr. Adams said at a press conference, "We had no knowledge of our university's dark past. We will do everything we can for the victims and their families." The university established a compensation fund for victims. Room 237 was now turned into a memorial room. A plaque was hung in memory of the 5 girls. Sarah Martinez, Jessica Chen, Lisa Thompson, Amanda Rodriguez, Rebecca Williams, their friendship stronger than death. Their memories speak louder than silence, it read. Lisa, Amanda, and Rebecca went through long therapy processes. While trying to remember their real identities, they were also trying to make sense of the lives they had lived for 30 years. "I am 2 different people," Lisa said in an interview. Laura White was real too, and so was Lisa Thompson. But now I know who I am. Frank Morrison's discovery of that secret room not only illuminated the fate of the 5 girls, but also exposed a much larger conspiracy. "I was just doing my job," Morrison said. "But if these families learned the truth, that's enough for me." The Millbrook Five case reminds us that sometimes even the safest seeming places, universities, dormitories, educational institutions, can hide dark secrets. And sometimes missing people really do return to us, but in ways we never expected. Even after 33 years, truth can emerge, justice can be served, and lost friendships can be found again.